Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. We're going to start in 1 or 2 minutes to make sure everyone is able to jump in. Thank you very much. All right, so welcome everyone. We have a lot to cover today, so we're gonna kick it off. Welcome to today's webinar, Busting Myths and Fears when Moving Off Oracle ULAs. My name is Cecilia Seti. I'm a campaign manager here at EDB, and I will be your host today. Before we get started, I just wanted to cover some housekeeping items. You can ask questions using the Q&A panel throughout the webinar, and we will address them. And then this presentation is being recorded, so we'll make it available for everyone after the event. Today, I'm joined by Celeste Turner-Hall, Senior Vice President of Product Marketing at EDB. There we go. And Julie McCall, partner at Scott & Scott, who will go over different strategies and tactics for minimizing risk when exiting Oracle ULAs. Celeste is a strategic marketing executive with nearly 20 years of experience across various technical verticals. She drives customer-centered and innovative strategies across EDB product portfolio, focus on proactively delighting EDB's customers through its software, solutions, and related product experiences. Julie McCall has spent her 25 years in legal career at the team of Scott & Scott and became an equity partner in 2008. Over the years, Julie's practice has included software license interpretation, software audit defense, issues involving privacy and network security, and copyright and trademark infringement. Julie has defended clients in more than 200 software audits involving Autodesk, Microsoft, Adobe, IBM, and Oracle. Today, she leads her clients through the software licensing process, from procurement to audit defense and everything in between. Key session takeaways, so you know what we're going to be covering today and what we are going to be learning. We're going to be going over strategies and tactics for exiting Oracle ULAs, Oracle's audit risk and pitfalls, and certification challenges. And with that, I'll hand it over to Celeste to kick us off. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you, Cecilia. Appreciate it. So I'm super excited to be here with everyone today. And thank you, Julie, for joining us. I found Julie because of her expertise, and I'm glad she's here to share it with us. So we're going to be debunking some myths and talking about not necessarily exiting a EULA only, but also reduction and some making changes in your EULA. And here at EDB, we hear about that a lot, like customers wanting to reduce their spend, wanting to diversify their database estate, and really needing to reduce what they're doing with Oracle to get that done. And so given your expertise, Julie, I thought you would be a great person to talk to our customers, prospects, and just people who are just interested because they are responsible for making decisions for their organization. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I really appreciate this opportunity.
Cool. So the first thing I want to understand, and it was a little bit in your introduction, is how long have you been working with Oracle customers and why do they seek your expertise?
I've been working with customers who use Oracle products for approximately 18 years of my legal career. They seek me out because I have experienced the gamut of possibilities when it comes to Oracle licensing. I can help you get into a ULA. I can help you manage the term of your ULA. I can help you decide whether it's cost effective for you to continue or renew your ULA. And I can certainly help you when it comes to exiting and doing all of the post-exit certifications that you're required to do under a ULA.
Thank you. What we hear here at EDB a lot is reduction in cost, right? That's one of the number one things that we hear. So it made me look at Oracle's website and some of their promotional materials. And here's how they describe a EULA. They say, unlimited license agreements with Oracle are generally considered an easy way for a large global organization to support business agility and value creation. Now, based on your experience, how would you define a EULA?
So I would say a EULA is an opportunity for a company to stop counting for 3 years. And so you can have internally an unlimited deployment of the products that are covered by the EULA. And I think that can be a huge benefit if you are really good at estimating. So if you are, as a team, if you're able to say, this is what our Oracle footprint should look like in 3 years, and then it actually does look like that, then it can be a really great and effective tool. But what I find is most companies are not very good at estimating. That's one of the reasons they want to get into a EULA, is because they're really terrible at counting. And so what happens is you get into a EULA, and then as the expiration is looming, you determine you're not very good at counting and you're not going to be able to figure out an appropriate way to certify. And so you just renew the EULA out of, I would say, operational, not laziness necessarily, but just some lack of maturity in an operational process that could get you to a point where you could successfully say, this is exactly how many Oracle licenses we're using. Another pitfall that I see is people say they want to reduce cost, and therefore the outcome they want to get is to roll off of their EULA. And unfortunately, for at least a set amount of time after the expiration of the EULA, your support costs are set. So you pre-negotiate a support cost for a number of years. And so if you say, I want to end the EULA term because we're paying too much for Oracle, that's not really going to achieve your objective, because you've already negotiated how much you're going to continue paying, probably for the next 3 or 4 years after the expiration of the EULA.
Yeah, so it's a longer window of locked-in costs than I think sometimes people understand going into these agreements. And then also you raised a really good point around counting, right? Because we all get caught in our day-to-day, what we're supposed to be doing, and then things like counting licenses or making sure we have cores right, or whatever the measurement may be, we're usually not that diligent about it, right? And in today's environment, and you've been doing this for a long time, so it might be interesting of your perspective. In today's environment, where I feel like business is moving faster because of the pandemic, moving to the cloud, all of those things happening to affect the way that we work, I would imagine that having the bandwidth or the forethought to really measure licenses and use is slipping even further. Have you noticed a difference from like 10 years ago versus maybe today?
The main difference that I've noticed, Celeste, is not necessarily how we count, although I think there are many more people that are inadvertently stuck in their ULAs than there have been in the past. I will say that. But I've also seen just a fundamental change in the way Oracle looks at things over the years. 15 years ago, if I got an Oracle audit from my client, I would say, oh, that's good. Oracle is reasonable. We can talk our way through this and come up with a business resolution that makes sense given what you need going forward. That wasn't working out as well for Oracle, I think, in terms of revenue generation. And now their license management specialist team, or LMS team, is a completely different animal. They're very aggressive. They work in conjunction with the sales team, where the sales team will take someone out to lunch and say, tell us all about your Oracle environment. And then the sales team will send a demand letter at the end of that lunch saying, you told us you have virtualization. That's not something that we knew about. And they'll make these informal outside of the audit framework licensing demands that are very strange. And so I think that's the biggest change that I've seen over the last 15 years. And I think it's a problem, Celeste, when you tell a group of people you can deploy as much as you want and you don't have to count it, because nobody is giving these folks an indication at the beginning that at some point this unlimited deployment right will end and you will have to count it. And you've maybe been in the ULA for 6 years, and now that you try to retrain everybody how to keep track of where these products are deployed in the environment, it has become extremely difficult to do so because everyone has gotten the impression that we're never going to have to count them.
That's such a good point, Julie. From your perspective, any other gotchas from your clients that you run into, and specifically when they're trying to reduce their engagement with Oracle or get out of it?
Yes. So there are a couple of things that I find immediately upon the termination of a ULA. So after the termination, you have a negotiated period of time, usually 30 days, sometimes longer, to actually certify to Oracle what your usage is. And the point of this certification, and the reason you have to get it right, is you've prepaid for all of the licenses in the product family that are covered by the ULA. And what that gets you is the number of perpetual licenses at the end that you certify. So they have very specific rules on what you can include in certification. So for instance, in many ULAs, you cannot certify anything that's in the Amazon cloud as part of your unlimited deployment. So if it's on-prem, you can count it. If it's in the cloud, in many instances, you cannot count it.
That's a big one.
So that's a huge gotcha. If you ever intend on including cloud-based, non-Oracle cloud-based licenses in your ULA certification, you have to negotiate that at the very beginning of your ULA period. And then what I see is people are counting products that are managed by VMware. And there's a very complicated relationship between Oracle licensing and VMware. And what I'm seeing is Oracle is coming back and saying, you've certified these VMware licenses, you're not allowed to do that. So in an audit, Oracle would count all of those VMware deployments against you. But when it's in your favor on the unlimited side, Oracle says you can't include those. So it's sort of a double-edged sword, and it's not entirely logical, but it's something that people are getting, I would say, surprised by regularly in my experience.
And do you think that is the confusion in how the contract is written, or is it not plainly disclosed? Why is that their issue with VMware that you're running?
I think it's twofold. One, because it's not in your contract, it's in a separate policy. And so Oracle will refer you and say, this is our cloud or our virtualized policy, and you have to follow it. But the only thing it says in your contract is you'll agree to all the policies at oracle.com/policies. And there's, thousands and thousands of pages that they can update anytime without any notice. But I think the other thing was perhaps an inadvertent issue with VMware. Many years ago, I haven't seen it lately, but many years ago, there was a marketing pamphlet that was being distributed to potential customers by VMware that said, this is an approved, this technology, I'll have to be careful with how it said it. Something like, this technology is functional with Oracle licensing. And so what they meant was it technically worked with Oracle products, but it didn't change the Oracle licensing rules. But what my clients interpreted that to mean was, this is an approved Oracle partitioning technology, and therefore you can license fewer Oracle licensing units because you're using VMware. So many people were very surprised after having received that VMware brochure to learn that they had to pay for the full physical capacity of the entire vCenter rather than just that portion that was actively using the Oracle products.
Yeah, because functional is not the same, right?
Exactly. And
Yeah.
it wasn't in a footnote, it said something like, this does not affect your Oracle licensing requirements, but nobody read that footnote as far as I
Yeah.
can tell.
Yeah, totally. So what else have you run into? So we talked about Amazon Cloud, VMware, any other gotchas or things that you see your customers running or your clients running into a lot?
Sure. So a couple of things that I see. One is my clients will often hire outside experts to help them with the certification process. And then if Oracle pushes back and says, we don't agree with these numbers, the third party steps back and says, oh, that's between you and Oracle. That's not between that's not between us. And so I think it's very important for my clients, if you're going to hire an expert to help you with your counting, because your team has gotten out of the practice of counting for Oracle purposes, make sure that you understand what exactly they're agreeing to undertake. Are they guaranteeing their outcome? If they tell you this is the true number and Oracle pushes back and says it's not the true number, and now you owe us millions of dollars, is that company going to stand by their analysis? So that's one thing that I would highly recommend, making sure that any results that you have are covered by the attorney-client privilege in case there is a dispute. You want to make sure you don't have a lot of discoverable information out there floating around in your organization that could be demanded by the other side. So that's a big gotcha that I have. And another gotcha is during the certification process, just guessing at what your numbers are. You can't figure it out. You've got a deadline looming. You know that you have the right to an unlimited license, and you know that all your licenses are going to be covered under support for a particular amount of time, and you've already negotiated that support. So why not over report in your certification? There are a couple of really strong reasons not to do that. But the biggest one is because Oracle is pushing back a lot of the time and saying to people, hey, look, we don't believe you. We don't believe these numbers. We don't think you went from 100 licenses for database to 10,000 licenses for database in 3 years. That's not a reasonable number. And I would agree with that, by the way. That's not a reasonable growth. And so Oracle say, we're going to come in and audit you, and there will be dire consequences financially if you're wrong. And so I think that's something, Celeste, that people have to evaluate when they're determining what we're going to do to roll off the ULA. And then I think it's very important, and I touched on this earlier, it's very important for people to understand what their financial obligations already are. So you can't say, hey, I want to reduce Oracle costs, so we're going to cancel the ULA, because that's not really going to have that effect. And so if you're not going to reduce your costs, do you really want to roll off? Or do you want to, formulate a strategy where you know that you're reducing your Oracle footprint to the smallest it can be, and then understanding that the only way that you can genuinely reduce costs is you have to terminate licenses that you've already purchased. So you've spent millions of dollars in some cases buying these licenses, and you have to continue to pay for them to be covered under support if you want any support. And the only way to end the support on those licenses that you've already purchased is to terminate those licenses and certify that you'll never use them again.
Got it. So you raised a really good question around termination of licenses. And before we get to that, I just want to make sure I'm doing a quick time check. Oh, we knew we would take up a lot of time talking, right? I wanted to talk to you about audits because, one of the things that in various discussions I've heard is there's this fear of an audit if a customer tries to do exactly what you said, reduce their relationship, right? And the fear of the audit, I want to understand where that comes from. Obviously, the big looming price tag, right? And then the level of effort of work. So from your perspective, when Oracle comes in with the audit, how should a customer prepare?
I think you should start preparing before you get the audit notice. We need to make sure that at any given point in time, we can calculate with specificity what our Oracle environment looks like. How many servers are using it? How many desktops? Do you have Java? Is it a licensable version of Java? All of these things are coming up currently in audits that I see. So typically a Java audit is a separate audit from some of the other Oracle technology programs or application programs that we see. Those usually aren't combined. We see sometimes the Oracle Partner Network or the OPN, they have their own audits or their reviews, and they come in and say, you've downloaded things that you didn't have a right to under the OPN, and please explain to us why you've done that. But I think the biggest fear is the technology/application audits. And what you need to make sure that you can do is, number one, produce all of your your agreements. So it's either an Oracle Master Agreement, an OMA, or an Oracle Licenses and Services Agreement, which is an OLSA. Depending on when you signed your agreement, it's likely one of those two. And then many clients that I have probably have 10 to 20 amendments to that original agreement that was somewhere in the 90s. And so it's very difficult when virtualization wasn't even happening, right, to make sure that your documents reflect what your actual licensing position is going to look like. You don't want to be doing that right in the middle of an audit. You want to make sure that you've done that well before an audit. And so you'll want to have an internal process that's pretty mature that can gather all of your deployments at any given point in time, and then help you analyze those deployments against what your entitlements are, which can be difficult to track, particularly when you have 30-year-old licensing agreements. And then when Oracle comes to call, you want to make sure that you're following a protocol that gives them what they ask for, but not necessarily everything they want. What they're, I said that badly. Give them what they're entitled to, but not everything they ask for. So sorry about misspeaking there, but that one's a really important one. They'll ask you for things that they're not necessarily legally entitled to. So the very first thing you want to do, Celeste, when they come calling, is look at your license agreements and find out, do they even have the right to audit you? In many instances, back in the old days, Oracle didn't care about auditing that much and didn't always put an audit clause in their license agreement. So you have to check, do they even have the legal right to audit you? If they do, what does that legal right entail? And make sure that if they're asking you, for instance, to run a script, you might not necessarily have to do that. So make sure you understand what they're asking you to do and whether they have a legal right or you have a legal obligation to perform those tasks.
That's great, Julie. So I want to take a quick pause because I noticed that there were 2 questions in the chat. Cecilia, do you want to tee up those 2 questions for Julie?
Absolutely. So number 1 is, does Oracle practice of not allowing ULAs certification of licenses managed by VMware also pertain to other virtual machine vendors?
Potentially. So Oracle has a list of approved Oracle technology, and it's ever changing. So it's important to double check and make sure you understand what the current list of approved Oracle partitioning technology is, and make sure that if you have any questions on that and you want to use another technology, the best time to make sure that you negotiate that is when you're buying something new from Oracle. So if you're about to make a large purchase, make sure you take that leverage that you have in making that large purchase and have them write in your contract that you can use whatever it is that the partitioning vendor is you want to use.
Perfect. Thank you, Julie. And here's another one, a bit long. It says, if I manage to find a way out of my EULA, but I have some applications I just cannot move, I want to offload technical support for any residual Oracle estate to a third party. Plus, Oracle is telling me that some regulators will only accept support of Oracle databases by Oracle, not a third party. Is this correct in your experience?
It's hard for me to say because I'm not sure which regulators they are, and there are many different obligations, but I know there are some Department of Defense departments that have very stringent security concerns, and it would not surprise me if none of the third-party providers were approved for CMMC or CUI purposes. And so it's possible. I haven't encountered that personally, but it is possible that that is the case. You'll want to make sure that you work with somebody who's very familiar with the regulatory requirements in this particular industry to make sure that's true. I would say that Oracle typically will tell you the most favorable version of the truth that gets them what they want. And so they're not usually in the business of just outright fabricating things, but they will give you the most Oracle favorable version of the truth that they possibly can.
Love it.
Awesome.
So, and then for that person, obviously they can reach out to you directly and we'll tee that up at the end. So what I heard very clearly is know the terms of your contract, because that will help you know what Oracle is actually entitled to, right? And that's super important, especially because they may or may not have audit in your contract if it's older.
That's
And
correct, Celeste.
And the
Absolutely.
other is in terms of your licensing, know your licensing, know what you're using, and then know what you're eligible to use and what's covered in the contract and what's not, right? So
Yes.
those are some easy thing, air quotes, easy things to start doing if you're not doing it today to get a handle of that. So I want to flip it on the other side. So for your clients that have successfully reduced their contract without huge penalties or have successfully exited a ULA, either scenario, what have they done and what tips can you provide for people listening?
So I would say that they evaluated some of the opportunities that Oracle is presenting in other areas. So I've seen some people create leverage where they wouldn't necessarily have any by exploring moving some or all of their Oracle databases to Oracle's cloud. So Oracle is very favorable toward hosting products in its own cloud, as favorable as it is antagonistic to hosting them in other vendors' clouds. And so I have seen a lot of people who want to reduce their Oracle cost do so successfully by formulating a strategy that includes as part of it a move of some of the products to Oracle's cloud. Oracle's extremely incentivized to get revenue from their cloud-based services. And I've seen them give people deals that are unheard of because people have agreed to long-term cloud contracts. So that's one thing, Celeste, they could do. The second thing is to just determine that even though you've paid for those licenses, wrap your head around the fact that the only way to save money is to terminate licenses. And so, a lot of times people are saying to me, we need support. We can't move to a third-party vendor for whatever reason for that support. And we're locked into this count for licenses. And then Oracle will tell them if they try to reduce their product footprint, that they've lost their discounts and now the support cost is actually going up. So it's a quirky thing where Oracle will say, look, you were spending $2 million, so we were giving you a 70% discount, but now you're only spending $1 million, so we're going to give you a 20% discount. So your license cost is going to go up. And so just be prepared for that possibility and know exactly what leverage we have. We don't want to bluff. We want to make sure that we know, if we're going to threaten that we're going to cancel Oracle support, can we really live without it? In many instances, you can live without it. There are some security concerns that cause people to maybe not want to go that path. And I completely understand it, but at least know whether you can do it or not.
Yeah. So what we see here is very similar. And I think one thing to remember with moving from Oracle to Oracle is that ultimately it's the same company. So those same business practices that may have caused you concern with your previous database may cause you concern when you move to the cloud. And so what we're seeing here is that there's a move to community Postgres, which is what we offer with support, right? And they start to just say, okay, these applications, these workloads, we're going to start to move them, right? Because we've basically made a decision. And I think that's the important part. Customers have to create a plan, right? So if you know that you want to reduce your contract, get whether it's a third-party contractor, legal, get them together. It's like, we know we're going to do this, so let's plan it out, right? And let's be aware. And I think that is a huge part of it. And what we see in our Oracle compatibility business is exactly that. Successful customers make a plan and they understand that they have to do things like reduce licensing, right? And then they also have to create a bridge for support. That's a big one. And sometimes they will create that bridge using a third party. So all of that comes into play. And I think that, to your point, the recurring theme is plan, understand, and get expert advice by people who will actually stand by their expert advice, right?
And give yourself plenty of time. This is going to take a whole year. Don't come to me 27 days before your certification deadline and say, we gotta solve this problem. Like this is a year-long process. So make sure you give yourself enough time.
Great. Well, listen, I know we're at time, Julie. This has been amazing. And I think you've given some tidbits that some folks on the call may have not even known. So we definitely appreciate that. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Cecilia.
All right, thank you very much, ladies. As anticipated, if you would want to contact Julie for any followed up questions, here's her email, and you can contact her for a free consultation. And then on EDB's side, if you're looking to migrate from Oracle to Postgres, here's our contact URL. You can send us an email. We're gonna, as I was anticipating, we're gonna make this recording available. If I know there's a few questions that we were not able to answer live, but we can totally do that privately. So send us a note and we'll be happy to answer any of those questions. Thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you, Celeste. Thank you, Julie, very much. And this is it for today. Hope to see you at our next webinar. Thank you very much, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.